Hello, buenos dias and ahoy. Welcome to this very special video of AmeriKnížky. Most of the books in this playlist are books that have been published for a long time, multiple decades, and their authors are well known and they have been very successful in influencing American culture. For this video, we're doing something a little different. Number one, the video is in English with all English subtitles. Number two, this video is an author who is not famous yet, or not as famous as the other authors in our list yet. But the intention is that one day she will be as famous as them. Regardless, I would like to present to you an author who I'm very close with, Katherine Grant. She writes romance novels and she has gone the route of non-traditional publishing. She's an independent publisher, which means that she writes and publishes her own books. I hope you enjoy and learn a lot from this interview with her. Keep reading, my friends. Nerds conquer the world. Katherine, I wanted to introduce you, but I think you would do a better job of introducing yourself. So could you please introduce yourself, tell us what you write, what genre you write in, and why you chose that genre?
Sure. So I'm Katherine Grant. I am an American. I live in New York City, but I actually grew up moving around the world. So I lived in Michigan, Tokyo, Warsaw, a month or two in Germany, and then I went to school in Chicago, and I now live in New York City.
Wow, and when you, sorry to interrupt, this is just so interesting. When you say you went to school in Chicago, did you go to primary school, or do you mean you went to university, or?
I went to university in Chicago.
Okay.
Yes. So growing up, that was a really rich childhood to have, being exposed to many experiences. And from very early on, I loved books, maybe because I was moving so much and I needed some friends. And I loved writing. So I always knew I wanted to be a writer. I moved to New York City after college. I, didn't really know what I was going to do. I just wanted to be in the big city. And I spent about a decade in corporate America. And then I started to take my writing more seriously and decided to publish my work. And so now I write regency romances, which are historical romances set in England around 1810 to 1820.
That's fascinating. And why did you pick regency romance or historical romance as a genre to write in? Is that your favorite genre to read, or did you just think it was interesting, or?
Yeah, I really love reading historical romances. And before that, I was writing novels that I was trying to be kind of like dark and serious and, more like grappling with the society's problems. And that was an interesting but not fun writing experience. And I began to realize that I wasn't reading the books that I was writing. I was reading historical romances, having a lot of fun with historical romances. And so at some point I was like, well, what if I tried writing what I enjoy? And I had so much fun writing my first book, The Ideal Countess. I wrote it in a couple of months and it really just flowed out of me in a way that I hadn't had the chance to get flowing in a while. So
a full
that was
novel
a
in a few months. You were a beast.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Good. Now you said you like to read. You said you like to read historical romance. Do you have a favorite book?
For historical romance, I don't have a favorite book. I have some favorite authors. My favorite author is probably Courtney Milan. She writes historical romances that are entertaining and also kind of challenge what you think about history. So you learn something and you think about something new and you get a really good warm and fuzzy feeling. The one book that's not historical romance that I come back to throughout my life is Ella Enchanted.
Oh, yeah.
By Gail Carson Levine, which I originally read when I was probably 11. And it was a huge inspiration for me for the first, I wrote my first novel when I was 12. And it was basically a fan fiction of Ella Enchanted. So obviously the story was inspirational to me, but it was also foundational because I would be writing my version and I'd pull down this book and I'd be like, okay, what was happening on page 45? And then I'd make something similar happen in my book. So it was really instructional in how to tell a story, how to shape a plot. And yeah, I love to reread this book every now and then.
I remember reading that. I think I was 11 or 12 or something when I read it for the first time, and I remember just loving it. I thought it was such a cool story, and all of my friends, I think, had similar reactions. We all read it around the same time and loaned our copies to each other. It's a great book.
It's very empowering, and
Hmm.
it doesn't fit with historical romance, the genre conventions, but in many ways it's similar to historical romance. It takes place in, a fictional kingdom, and it is, one girl's story, but there's strong romantic elements.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Excellent choice. And you've talked a little bit about your life as an author, but if you mentioned you left corporate America to be an author, basically, what's the best thing about being an author that you would say?
I get to spend a lot of time in my imagination, which is my favorite place.
Everybody knows you there.
Yes, yes. And then I also get to share that with other people. And so hearing from family, friends, or strangers that they enjoyed this imaginary world that I created and they connected with my characters is just this really powerful feeling, because of course it's all a piece of me. So to hear that someone connected with it is a very affirmative feeling.
And I have a little bit of a confession to make. I am actively not a romance fan at all, like not modern romance, not historical romance, nothing. I read your first book, and I just absolutely flew through it. I thought it was the best modernly written historical romance that I had read, and I thought when I was reading it, oh, this is why people like romance books. Like this is some good stuff.
Thank you. I love to hear that.
Yeah, I'm being sincere. It's not just because you're family, and I'll have to see you at some family event sometime in the future. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
Now, obviously, not everything can be sunshine and roses. So, what's the worst thing about being an author? If you could tell us that.
Yeah. So, some of the challenges of being an author, particularly I chose to be an independent author, so I publish myself.
Oh, okay.
Is I have to operate it. Yeah, so I operate as a small business. And so the writing part of it is the product. And then I'm also responsible for the business side of it. All of the retail, relationships, all of the marketing, all of the administration, all of that. And so those are challenges I enjoy, but it can also be it feels like hitting your head against the wall sometimes when you're just trying to get your book out there in the market, because if people read it, they'd enjoy it, or at least 10% of the people might enjoy it, but you got to get that 10% bigger. So it can feel really lonely, and you have to keep reminding yourself, why you chose to do this and why you believe in yourself.
So, being an author, especially if you're publishing for yourself as an independent author, that's an indie author, as an independent author, you basically are a PR manager, you're a publisher, you're a director of a small business, you're a startup entrepreneur, and you have to write stuff that people actually like. So that's quite a full plate that you have. Author. It's not like you went to go to some cottage surrounded by butterflies and singing birds, type on a typewriter. You did
right. Although I'm lucky enough to have a really great apartment with a garden that I look at. So I do feel
nice.
often that I am in that cottage. But no, it's a lot of, I think all of those different roles have their own, make you vulnerable in different ways. And so when you're the independent author, you're vulnerable like 360 degrees vulnerability.
I believe it. And can you tell us about your book specifically? I'll help you be a PR manager for a minute. What is it about your books that makes them different from the rest of the genre, or what's something that you are known for as an author?
Sure. So for people who aren't familiar with historical romance, it is generally, love stories with two characters who are falling in love. The plot tends to be, how do we get them to get out of their own way to end up together? And there's always a happily ever after. And I write in Regency, England, which is 1810 to 1820. Those are my dates, which was a really interesting time. And I get inspiration from the actual history, I love to like dig into the historical trends and then think about, okay, what was it like to live as a person, during the Industrial Revolution? Or what was it like to be an aristocrat who was facing the extinction of your class? Not that they went extinct, but they thought they might. And so I like to use that to then explore topics that resonate with today's day and age. I'm really curious about how do people relate to progress, societal progress, and how do the way that you have those values relate to who you choose to fall in love with?
That is really cool. Well, not very articulate response from me, but that's very cool. And so you're a woman and you write about women and men. Do you have any opinions or any thoughts on how women are usually portrayed in literature?
Well, literature is a big word.
I picked that word for exactly that reason.
I think, the books that we tend to read in school are, for the most part, written by men. They're often written by men from a long time ago, and so they're reflections of those particular authors' experiences. And women did not live empowered lives, and they often are kind of accessories to stories rather than active characters. And even when they are active characters, they're often not nuanced characters.
Nuanced in meaning like there's many aspects of them. They have complicated personalities and they show different emotions.
Right. They are not just, often they end up being either just the villain who is, an attractive woman, but who will betray you. Or they are the mother who will take care of you, but is not attractive. Or they are the really attractive woman who's your wife, but doesn't satisfy you for some reason. There's specific typical characters that we see. And I think that's one of the reasons I love romance, because the structure of romance novels requires that the female character be an active character. She has a goal. Sometimes her goal isn't great. Sometimes it's literally just to get married. But usually, especially in books published post 2010, she has some other interesting goal. And she's falling in love, and she is very active in her own story. And you see a character who is not just a woman. She has all these other aspects to her character.
Do you know how many books you've read in your lifetime? Have you ever counted?
No, I haven't counted. I've joined Goodreads a couple of different times and been overwhelmed trying to fill the library. I would estimate, I don't know, somewhere like 500 books.
Okay. That's pretty good considering you're still quite young, and so there's plenty of books in such a short life. And now to change a little bit, you mentioned most of the books that we read in school are read by men, but there are some books that are written by female authors. I think the most famous ones are Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, To Kill a Mockingbird in the States. Most of us have to read To Kill a Mockingbird. Do you have any comment on being part of the canon of women writers in literature, or any thoughts on how writing goes for you as a woman, if you find more expectations from your readers? Just can you talk about women writers in general or women authors?
Sure. I mean, it's very flattering to be told I'm part of the same canon as Jane Austen and Harper Lee, but I will put aside my imposter syndrome and thank you for that.
No problem. Anytime. Happy to help.
I think, again, romance is a very interesting and wonderful genre to be a part of, because 99% of the authors are women. Most of the readers are women. So it's a very female space, female identifying space. So I think that when you're inside that space is incredibly supportive, and you just kind of feel like you're part of a really great group of people. And then the flip side of that is that romance is perceived as a very female genre. It is looked down upon. Many people think of it as, oh, it's just fluff. It's just, bored housewives read romance. And, that's not true. And I think that is part of the systemic misogyny or, sexism that we face as a society. There's a tweet going around in the last few months where someone is pointing out that like everyone exalts these genres where female characters tend to be abused or victims of violence or whatever, and then we're looked down upon for seeking out stories in romance where female joy is prioritized. So I, as part of the romance community, don't feel a lot of stigma about being a woman, and I really feel like I'm part of a conversation about what does it mean to be a woman, how do we get more nuance into what does it mean to be a woman, what's happiness, and all of that. But then once whenever I'm interacting with people who are not part of the romance community, I'm kind of reminded that, oh yeah, my whole genre is looked down upon because it is women, by women, for women, about women. So that can get a little discouraging, but I mostly don't worry about it.
Yeah, one of my favorite genres, as you brought up how women are victims of violence or stereotyped, I love to read thrillers and crime novels and stuff like that. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Or if it's a female detective, then she's very complex and she has daddy issues, and I feel like they all have daddy issues of some sort. But great, another female romance character, which is how our society has trained us to think in many ways. Then a few pages later, oh, no, okay, she's actually, okay, I can still respect her. She's still a cool person. And I think your books are really great for that. Speaking of your books, do you have any long-term goals, or where do you want your career as a writer to go?
Yeah, right now I'm working on a series that's going to take me through the next couple of years. I would love to be writing for the rest of my life until I'm like 92 and, die in the middle of writing a sentence.
Please make it the middle of the sentence.
So in terms of what I want for my career, I'd love to keep writing forever. I also love mysteries, so I kind of have a dream of doing a romance a year and a mystery a year. Ooh. And I would ultimately love to just be able to support my family, my husband primarily, with my writing career so that he can pursue his dreams.
Oh, that's really nice of you. Yeah, your husband's a lucky guy.
Well, he's helping me pursue my dreams right now, so it's
very true.
Equal partnership.
You do have a really great relationship. And I want to ask you what you wish young people would know, young girls, young boys, because you talk a lot about feminism and people think that feminism is just for women and it doesn't affect men. But obviously there's not just women in society, there's men too. So what's something you would like young people to know?
I think it's important to not worry too much about the future because every life experience builds upon itself so that you end up with all these skills you didn't realize you were learning that you can apply to whatever your new venture is. So when I was in corporate America, I was planning conferences for financial services. I did not think that would have anything to do with writing. But now that I'm an author, I have to do my own marketing. I'm going to conferences, I'm planning events, and it's like, oh, I have this tool set, and so I don't need to stay up at night. Regarding feminism, I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s with like all this message of girl power and whatnot, and I kind of thought, like, yeah, obviously genders are equal, everyone can do whatever they want, and like, why are we still talking about this? But as I've gotten into the world, I've realized, first of all, I was living a very privileged existence down to like my family experience where we were raised that way. But I think people view feminism as this very charged word when it's really saying something simple, which is that no one should have their experience determined based on what they identify their gender to be. Mm-hmm. Your experience should be defined by your capabilities and what you want to do. And so if a girl wants to write a romance novel, she should be able to do it. If she wants to go to space, she should be able to do it. Same with men. I think as wonderful as the romance community is, there's not a lot of space for men to join. And that's something that we have a problem with, that we need to reckon with, so that we can welcome men as writers as well, because if they want to write a romance novel, they should be able to. So, it's a problem because everyone is limited when we're putting people in boxes based on things that don't really matter. Mm-hmm. And I think being empathetic to each other and supporting each other's goals without worrying about what you should be doing based on your gender is the ultimate goal of feminism.
Yeah, I know. You mentioned wanting to support your husband with your writing so that he can pursue his dreams as well. And it just occurred to me how often we look down. If a man were to stay home and a woman were to go to work, we would certainly look down on that man as, not fulfilling his role as breadwinner, or he's being like a slacker or something like that. But it seems like if the woman has a job opportunity that's good, and the husband can stay home or the father can stay home and take care of the kids, if he does a good job with his job and is happy at home with the kids, and the mom is happy at work working, then what's the problem? But the fact that we have to, say out loud that that's not a problem, that's kind of it sounds like it's kind of what you're working against, right?
Yeah, I think so. And, I, as a proud feminist, when I decided to quit my job that had steady income and focus full time on my writing with my husband's financial support and moral support, mm-hmm. I felt a lot of conflict around that, in that I worried that people were labeling me a bad feminist because I was choosing a very traditional path of letting my husband support me and pursuing my dream, which some people might perceive to be more of like following a hobby, like, oh, she's just going to stay home and write and eat chocolate all day. And listen, I do write and I eat a lot of chocolate. But it's my dream. And this is something I've always wanted to do. And even if I hadn't always wanted to do it, it's what I am choosing to do with my time. I'm putting serious effort behind it. And part of that was me, like I said, vulnerability. Like that was like, I had to take down some walls and say, okay, well, first of all, that's just an imaginary thing. Nobody said that to me. And mm-hmm. Second of all, so what if they do? But I think, we all have a lot of weight around what we think people expect of us. Mm-hmm. And if you can kind of break free of that and just focus on your own inner voice and what you want with the support of people around you, I think that makes everyone live a more fulfilled life.
That's totally fair. And it's going back to what we were saying about advice for young people, perhaps. Even I grew up in the same time as you, late 90s, early 2000s, with girl power, and I always kind of took it as automatic that girls could do whatever boys can do. At the same time, it's one thing to say that and believe that, and it's another thing to, when you are faced in a situation, really have that be your truth in your core and say, no, I really shouldn't care what people might be thinking of me. And honestly, people tend to be quite selfish. So probably if you're thinking, and everyone is worried about what everyone else is thinking of them. So if you're thinking, what do these people think of me? They probably are so consumed with asking themselves the same question, they really don't care what you're doing. That was a liberating thought for me, at least in my life. But it's
a really good check to like give yourself, like if you're obsessing about, oh no, like are people noticing the stain on my jacket or whatever? It's like, no, they're worrying about the stain on their jacket.
Yeah, there was one time though when I was teaching that I was having a day, and when I had gotten dressed that morning, I put my shirt on inside out, and it was striped and there was no message, so it looked the same except for obviously the seams. And I definitely taught an entire hour of English grammar, and then one of my sweet students, who's a friend of mine, came up to me and said, just so you know, your shirt is inside out. And I looked down, so it is. Thank you. That's embarrassing. But everyone still afterwards continued to ask for my help with stuff, and nothing bad happened. But Ugh.
People relate more when you show a vulnerability. So that reminds me of how when I did, I used to plan, training events for financial services, and there was this one facilitator who would come, and I was always worried about having everything exactly right, showing up on time, having the tablecloth out, having all the name tags and whatever. And one time, like probably 5 times into working with this facilitator, I showed up and I got like almost all the way to the venue before realizing I had left behind the name tags at my apartment, which was like an hour away.
Oh
And
no.
I was in a complete panic. I was like, my boss is going to be so disappointed in me. I was really not happy with myself. And I felt very, very sure that the facilitator would be like, this girl doesn't know what she's doing. Why are they putting her with my events? That sort of thing. He had been nice to me before that. As soon as I told him, like, this is what happened and I'm going to run back, but like, I need this. He was just like, oh yeah, no problem. And he was so much more, he was so much more like connected to me after that, because I think I had been holding myself too perfect, and it's hard to relate to someone who's always doing the right thing. So after seeing you with your inside out shirt, your students were probably like, well, I've had that type of problem. Hey, I can relate to this person, instead of be like, oh, she's a goddess.
Oh my. I don't think they thought I was a goddess even before I had my shirt inside out. It's a nice thought though. And yeah, or worst case scenario, like most people will laugh. If there's something, there's very few things that are so bad that people won't just laugh them off. And making people laugh is a success. At least that's what I tell myself. It helps me sleep at night. We are almost out of time. I forgot to check the clock. So I wanted to know how people can find you. If you could tell us how people can find you, follow what you're doing, and if there's a way that they can get your books as well.
Sure. So I'm on a lot of different digital platforms. The most central place is my website, www.katherinegrantromance.com.
Link in description. Go on.
You can, so from there, you can subscribe to my newsletter. I send out 2 messages per month. One is updates about book sales and stuff like that. And then the other is a research deep dive into a topic that I've been researching recently. I also am on Facebook and Instagram. So if you search Facebook, Katherine Grant Romance, you'll find me. If you search Instagram, Katherine Grant Romance, you'll find me.
Link in description.
And my ebooks are available worldwide on ebook retailers. My physical books are available in the US. Most bookstores can access them. Internationally, they should be available for bookstores to order, but it does get a little wacky. And the best place to go to figure that out is, again, my website, or my personal bookstore is shop.areo/Katherine Grant. And I'll send you the link, so you can put the link right here.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much for your time. Happy reading. I won't take you away from writing anymore. And if you ever want to do a live reading in the Ústí region of the Czech Republic, we have a place you can stay for free.
Thank you. This has been really fun. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Good. I'm so glad. Good luck with everything, and please keep us posted on what's up and coming in your life, okay?
I absolutely will. Thank you.
All right. Excellent.